So we understood that all of the traps of the shaitan come back to two fundamental traps.
يا منزل الآيات والفرقان بيني وبينك حرمة القرآن.
The first one is ash-shahwa. And ash-shahwa is your desire. And the reality of your desire is that you know it's wrong. You know that what you're doing is wrong. You know it's not allowed in Islam. But you do it because there's a pleasure involved in doing it. This is ظلم. It's oppression. Because it is وضع الشيء في غير موضعه. You know where this belongs. You know it belongs in the category of sin. Why are you doing it? Because it has a pleasure for you. And the second one is ash-shubha. And ash-shubha, it comes from the sheen and the ba and the ha. What do they mean? Ash-sheen wal ba wal ha means resemblance, right? Resemblance, we say, al-waladu yushbihu abahu. The child resembles his father. Why is a shubha called a shubha? Because it has a resemblance to the truth. Sometimes we might call it in English a grain of truth. Let me give you an example. A person worshipping the sun instead of Allah, would we call this a shubha? We wouldn't. There's no resemblance to the truth. It's just batil, it's just falsehood. But what about a person who asks Allah through the righteous people because they have a status in the sight of Allah, or he asks Allah through the status of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why do we call this a shubha? Because the Prophet does have a status sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the righteous people are righteous, it's true, but it's just not allowed to make dua to them. So it has a grain of truth. It's false. You guys all with me? It's false, but it has a tiny, tiny grain of truth in it that makes the person get confused. He says, but righteous people are righteous. That's true. But those righteous people don't deserve worship. So there's something there that confuses the person and gets them mixed up. And we call this al-jahlu, ignorance. So shaitan either comes at you through desire or through ignorance. Either he comes at you through getting you to do something you know that it's wrong because you enjoy it, or getting you to do something because you think it might not be wrong, or you're not sure, or you're confused about it. Let me give you an example of the same thing, once from the angle of ash-shahwa and once from the angle of ash-shubha. Let's take the issue of al-riba, for example. One person, he knows that this contract or this loan is haram. It's a riba-based loan. But shaitan tells him, if you don't take it, you're going to be poor. Look, you need to live in a nice house and it's important. And just, I know it's haram, but sometimes you just have to do stuff. And so his desires have overcome him. And he does it and he says, I know it's riba and I know it's haram, but you know what it is? I just didn't have a choice and it was necessary for me and I had to try, and okay, I know it's wrong, but Allah forgive me, ask Allah to forgive me, that's what I could do. The other person comes and says, I don't believe this contract is riba. or says, I believe that riba is permitted for one house only if you're living in the West. In Darul Kufr, you're allowed to take riba for one house. Is that true? It's not true. But the person believes it. They heard a fatwa and they got themselves confused that in Darul Kufr, in a place among the non-Muslims, you're allowed to take riba for one house. Both of them took the same riba. One of them knew it was haram, but his desires overcame him. The other one still thinks that, well, I don't know if it's haram or not, but I think I read a fatwa and the sheikh said it's okay. And both of them did the same sin. Everything the shaitan does to you, every trap the shaitan lays for you, is either from one of these two things. And so now we can talk about how to overcome these two great traps, and from it, how to overcome every trap. First of all, I want you to understand something before we start this discussion, and that is, I want you to understand that Allah has complete and total power over every single thing, including the shaitan. So I don't want you to ever think that the shaitan will ever be victorious against Allah, or that the shaitan has some kind of authority or control besides Allah. وَإِذْ زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ وَقَالَ لَا غَالِبَ لَكُمُ الْيَوْمَ مِنَ النَّاسِ وَإِنِّي جَارٌ لَكُمْ فَلَمَّا تَرَاءَتِ الْفِئَتَانِ نَكَصَ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ وَقَالَ إِنِّي بريء منكم إني بريء منكم إني أرى ما لا ترون إني أخاف الله والله شديد العقاب. When the shaitan made their deeds seem good to them, this is one of the traps of the shaitan. Shaitan makes things look good that aren't good. How many times do people justify the haram, right? People say something that the people do that's evil, and people see it as something good. And shaitan says to the kuffar of Quraysh, no one's gonna defeat you today in the battle of Badr. No one is gonna defeat you today. I'm standing right next to you. I'm gonna fight with you. I'm gonna be your defender. I'm gonna be your protector. I'm gonna bring my army. We're gonna fight against these few tiny number of Muslims all together. When the shaitan saw the two armies, or the two armies saw each other and the shaitan was there and the two armies saw each other, he ran away. He turned on his heels and he ran away and he said, I am nothing to do with you people. I can see what you can't see. And I can see the angels in ranks and I'm scared of Allah, and he ran away. That shows you the reality of the shaitan, right? That he doesn't have power. He told them, don't worry, I'm standing right next to you. Me and you, we're gonna either live together or die together. As soon as he saw the angels, ma'a salama, see you guys later. I'll be back in a while. And he let them get killed. He said, I can see what you can't see. I'm scared of Allah. So don't ever think that the shaitan is gonna win this battle. If we said that the traps of the shaitan, all of them come back to shubuhat and shahawat. They come back to misconceptions and confusion and a lack of knowledge, or they come back to desires and oppression and doing what you know to be wrong. And by the way, from the evidences of this is the ayat we read every single rak'ah of every single prayer. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. هو المغضوب عليهم, not speaking about the religious group. هو المغضوب عليهم, what is their صفة? ما صفتهم? It is that they know what they're doing is wrong, but they do it anyway. And who are ad-dallin? Not the group, but what's their sifatuhum? What's their description? They're the people who don't know what they're doing. So Allah told you all evil, everything that takes you away from the Sirat al-Mustaqim is either doing something you know to be wrong or not knowing the difference between right and wrong. And the Yahud they became known for the first one, and the Nasara became known for the second, even though both of them have it. Both the Yahud and the Nasara have both, but they became famous for the first one. Famous for knowing it's wrong, but doing it anyway. And that's why we see them until today, they haven't changed. Knowing something it's wrong and doing it anyway. And the Nasara not knowing the difference between what's right and wrong, and just worshipping Allah upon jahl, upon ignorance. So now what is it, what weapon do you have by which you can fight against shubuhat? It is al-ilmun nafi'. It's beneficial knowledge. Knowledge of your religion is what protects you by Allah's permission from confusion and misconception and doubt.